And I know that John Lear, for example, believes that this Chick Burlingame, was supposedly the pilot who went into the Pentagon on the American Flight 77. John believes that for various suspicious background reasons that he was at the helm of this plane that overflew the Pentagon. So and then this guy's daughter died in mysterious circumstances. They said it was a fire, and her husband escaped, but she didn't, in an apartment there in northern New Jersey. And there's all these odd things that that do not support the government story. So those are reasons to suspect that there's something amiss.
And at the end of the day, you have to say, okay, there could be all these people, they could have existed, they could have died after, but how is the story possible in the first place? How does it make sense, just the plane to get eaten up by a building? Before we start talking more about that, I just want to kind of make a mental picture for people. Think this plane was going, these planes, let's say it had an average of 500 miles per hour. If you fire a bullet out of a gun, that's lead, that's denser than aluminum. That's going, let's say you have past the speed of sound ammunition, so you're going over 1,300 feet per second or whatever it is, and you know what you shoot at? You shoot at a steel plate, and you know what happens to the bullet? It breaks up, bounces off, it goes ping, and then after the end of the day, you paint over the target again, you shoot it again, paint over it again, shoot it again. So that's a lead bullet with a heavier mass launched at a faster speed at a steel plate that's probably like quarter of an inch thick, and it bounces off. So why does aluminum just completely go through without deforming? But then if you watch the NIST simulations, you'll see it go straight through, break through the building, and then all of a sudden confetti,
Wow, yeah. Well, lead is a fairly soft metal anyway. But
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
But you're so right. I mean, the NIST has these totally. That's why I brought a suit, of course, against the NIST contractors, because what they did was traitorous to both science and truth, and what they did was it's science junk science. Okay, for $20 million, they all put together in effect collectively 10,000 pages worth of BS. Okay, now there are a few good things in there actually. For example. Underwriters Lab couldn't get these simulated or reproductions of steel beams to sag, even though they subjected them to heat for longer and hotter than could have been the case in the fires on 9/11. Okay.
Absolutely.
So you get some gems out of this.
I think there was an excellent thing in there. I think the best thing was something that wasn't in there. And what wasn't in there was they failed to prove that a collapse happened. They failed to prove the initiation of a collapse happened. They could only talk about factors leading up to the initiation of a collapse. And that was confirmed by Catherine Fletcher to Dr. Wood in a letter that I believe it was about Dr. Wood's request for corrections or her appeal. And that to me was like, wow, because you just told me you represent NIST, and you just told me that they didn't investigate. Not only did they not investigate the initiation of collapse or collapse itself, they barely did the factors leading up to the collapse.
That's right. So they misrepresented themselves to Congress. In effect, they didn't. They took money under fraudulent circumstances, because they didn't follow through with what Congress thought they were buying.
And then the title of NC Star 1 was, what was it? The Collapse of the World Trade Centers or something. It was a long title, but in there it says the Collapse of the World Trade Centers. So how can you create a report and sign off on it when it contradicts?
Yeah, well, they couldn't do what Dr. Wood did, and that is an honest, objective assessment, evaluation of all the evidence. And you put it together, and as Dr. Wood would say, if you listen hard enough, the evidence will speak to you. In other words, you don't have to make any heroic jumps to figure out what happened. Now, however, this is all in the way of propaganda. Well, most people are not going to look at this closely. Instead, they're going to, if anything, will know a few superficial facts. They'll know, like, oh, well, the government spent $20 million. I hired all these impressive scientists and engineers, and they produced a 10,000-page report. End of story. QED, right? No, it's a pack of lies.
And then you look into the companies hired, the contractors, and conflict of interests all around the board. I saw Boeing on it, and I'm like, wait, they made the jets, but I can understand how they'd be useful, but to give them that much power in determining what happened to the jets, isn't that a bit of a conflict of interest?
Oh yeah, I mean the most obvious ones directly dealt with Dr. Wood's suit against NIST contractors, because two of them really stick out. SAIC,
yep,
which is Scientific Applications International Corp., which was headquartered in San Diego. I'm not sure they still are, but at any rate, it's a top 10 defense contractor with, guess what, expertise in directed energy weapons.
They don't exist.
Oh yeah, right. Well, why does the Directed Energy Professional Society exist?
Well, it's funny. You look up that, and you look up their founding member, and it's ARA, and then you look at a silver sponsor, and it's SAIC.
Yeah, ARA is also got directed energy expertise, and they're headquartered in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So here they are. They are suspicious. They would be candidates, high-ranked candidates for suspects to have participated in the destruction of the World Trade Center. And then guess what? Well, they in any event, they know how directed energy weapons work, and they've certainly got expertise I don't have. But then they're hired to come in and look at what happened. So. They're good candidates for the cover-up.
Oh, absolutely. Well, another one that stuck out too that made me laugh was Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, and their conflict of interest was they were awarded the contract for WTC-1 or One World Trade Center.
Oh, for the replacement.
Yeah, for the replacement.
Yeah, that's isn't it fun? That's been going on, as Webster Tarpley said. Back to Nero and maybe before. And in that the government creates the problem. In other words, there's a false flag operation, be a prominent example of that, creating the problem, and then comes up and say, oh, let me help you. Here, I've got the solution. And the solution involves a lot more money and power for me and my gang.
Okay, let's hire someone. Oh, no, my buddies will take care of it.
I mean, it's such a racket, and more and more people are finding out about this, fortunately. And this show is a good example of it, and the internet more generally, where they higher ups, the powers that be, don't have the control over opinion that they once had, even though they still retain a lot. But it's eroding.
It's stuck at ridicule now. Now it seems like the final defense is, okay, they say something, you're a conspiracy theorist, don't talk.
Yeah, they try to establish the boundaries of legitimate opinion, or it's amazing. And this goes back to something you mentioned earlier about the psychology that people have, and some are intimidated and some are worried about career suicide. But, they've done these simple psychological tests with students. And I recall one, and I can't name the psychologist involved, but they would show students sitting around a conference table 3 lines. I can't even remember if they were on a graph that they're vertical or horizontal. But you're supposed to pick out, let's say, the intermediate length line. This is real simple, okay? And they have one student in there who's an innocent, and then they'll have 4 students who are in on the plot, and they'll insist it's A when it's really B, and they will intimidate a lot of students. It's not that big a deal. I guess I'll go along with the crowd. So peer pressure is a very important factor in human behavior.
Oh, absolutely. And full-grown men will succumb to peer pressure, no problem. Especially once they get into that groove where they have their job, then they have a family, and they can't, they don't want to think about that. All they got to do is worry about going to work for the day and then coming home.
Hey, I've got an interesting episode of this peer pressure thing.
Yeah.
I'm a motorcyclist. I've got two, and my wife, man, we used to have a gold wing. She loved that, riding on the back of the gold wing. It's a queen's throne, and for various reasons, I'm into lightweight because I got to put motorcycles up and down in the pickup or in a toy hauler.
All the work.
And so yeah, and I don't want to do it 900-pounder anymore, and so. I'm riding around on our RV trip, various sites to see, and she's missing riding because she didn't like to ride on this Yamaha sport bike I've got. So she's got the money, and we bought a scooter, a maxi scooter they call them, this class of highway speed worthy. This one's called a Yamaha Majesty. It's brand new. It's a leftover 2013. Got a good price on it. And she loves it. I call it Gold Wing Light because of the seat and the backrest. And it'll do 100 miles an hour, so you're okay running down the highway. Well, she's worried, though, about, but if we ride into one of the rallies on a scooter, I said, I could care less, I'm not, I'm not worried about my manhood being challenged or any of this, hey, grow up, people, it's, so I don't care. Or it's like I say, when somebody tells me, and this happens in 9/11 or in economics, writing and research, where people will say, hey, don't go there. Oh, why? I think I need to go there, right? Some people are just, got their own, orbit and don't care a whole lot about what other people think. And I've always been that way. Some people have a bad attitude, and I got a bad attitude.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know for myself, when somebody says, if they say don't go play in traffic, I'm not going to go play in traffic. But if they say, oh, no, don't go in there, that's all garbage. Well, if it's garbage, I got to see it for myself. I got to verify. That's kind of how I got started on everything, just questioning everything. I was always had a nice little distrust for the authority, or, well, not really authority figures, but powers that be. You hear what older people said around you, and you kind of pick up stuff here and there. But it wasn't until after where I really started questioning it. And again, I kind of faced, I guess, that kind of scenario where people were kind of uneasy about it, and you just have to do, if it makes you happy, do it. But in this case, it's the point where you have to get the information out. It's not something where, of course, I'm not going to be talking about crazy, kooky things. I'm not saying that any of the spiritual side of anything is true or false, but I kind of always stayed away from that. Even when I was looking at stuff like UFOs and stuff like that, I always stayed away from that. That wasn't doing it for me. However, I came across information that was verifiable by myself. Anyone could go and do it, and I felt that I needed to spread the information, which is kind of what got us here.
Yeah, and I go back to the internet again. If it's known, you'll be able to find out on the internet. Now, it's true, there's a lot of nonsense there too, but that's part of life. It's with or without the internet, there's going to be a lot of nonsense.
Oh yeah, well, you have a textbook in school. They say take this all as fact, but yet I've had so many textbooks with nonsense in them, that I think I'll take some internet for a while.
Well, you and many other young people give me hope that better days will arrive and truth will out.